In this episode of Sound Connections, we will have Turo Pekari. He is really interesting to talk with. Actually, when I'm traveling and I'm on conferences, he is my favorite person to hang with. A lot of people feel that about him. He is what I would call a master networker. Hope you can learn something from it. Hi, Turo, and welcome to Sound Connections.
Hello, great to be here.
Yeah, I met you first time in Bulam a couple of years ago, but I've come to know since that you are quite a legendary person in the Nordic music industry, probably the European music industry, because everywhere I go, people ask me, do you know Turo? And I do know Turo, but apparently everyone knows you. So there's something you're doing as Turo that is working when it comes to network. And that is sort of what we want to dive in today. We want to talk about you. We want to talk about networking. We want to talk about entrepreneurship with that context. But thank you for being here, Turo. You sit in Finland?
Yes, in Helsinki right now.
Yeah. And I love Helsinki. I love Finland. I've been doing a lot. Right now, you work with Music Finland, but you've done a whole bunch of stuff. Could you, for my sake and listeners' sake, tell a bit about you? Where do you come from? And what's your journey until now?
Yeah, sure. So basically, tell a bit of my background. Since I was very young, I've just been a passionate music lover. I started to collect vinyls in the age of 5 or 6, I guess. And already when I was a teenager, I had quite strong, at that time, physical social networks with people who were either artists or are in some way related to music in Finland. And I've always had a passion for new technologies. So like many people in the music business, I'm also a failed artist. When I was, 13, 14 years old, I was playing Sonic Youth, reminding noise rock. I had green hair, but nothing came out of that. So finally, when I graduated from the University of Helsinki, from the Faculty of Political and Social Sciences, I still had the idea that I'd like to work in some way in the music industry. And it did happen quite soon after that, and basically my entry to the business was done with the help with my skills in research and knowledge from EU policy and funding from my studies. But I did get some help also from my friends in the business at that time. My entry to the music business was from Teosto, the Finnish Collection Societies. It was probably around 14 years ago. I just contacted them and offered my expertise, and eventually I was hired, even though they weren't exactly looking for anyone. And that's how things got started. And in the early days, I was working as a research manager and kind of also trend and analyst there, but I was really lucky because I also had a chance to develop my own career there. And at some point, I started to lead the innovation actions and R&D for Teosto. We were the first collection society in the world who launched an in-house innovation lab in 2016. And I was doing future foresight and strategy work for them, leading Teosto's data strategy work and data transformation for several years. And during that time, I basically started to develop my international networks, also, of course, also Teosto's international networks, and that gave the possibility to start to work with many international people and companies, not just in the music business, but also tech companies and other types of organizations. Right now, I'm working for Music Finland, the export office for the Finnish music industry, as their innovation and business development executive. Basically, I'm overseeing all our international operations for labels, publishers, management agencies, artists, songwriters, mainly in the commercial music field. But I'm also in charge of our research and innovation activities, cross-sector collaboration, external funding at the moment.
So what I hear you say, there's a lot of network involved. There's a lot of working with people and seeking out new people and connections. Very direct question. What do you believe is the essence of networking in the music industry?
It plays a very crucial role. I believe music business, probably more than many other businesses, it's still very, very human-centric. And a lot of business is actually done with people that you have a personal relationship with. So that's something that, from my perspective, makes it still quite unique.
Do you have any idea of how that might be? Does that come from concert culture, or like why is it so different than so many other industries?
I don't know. Maybe a lot of people who end up in the music industry are very passionate people, and they really love what they are doing. So that might be one reason.
Yeah. So the human interaction, the human resonance around music itself brings people together. That makes a lot of sense. But one important question is, I don't know it, so I really ask you, how have you become so central? Like, and again, as I refer to the conversation, everyone knows you. Like, how has that happened?
I guess I've done quite a lot of work to make that happen, and at some point, I started to quite purpose-orientedly to develop my professional / expert brand in many topics. In many cases, even more than the company brand I was working with, and that's very, very important, because I think that that's something that makes you stand out from the crowd. During the time when I was working for Teosto, it was not exactly the sexiest business around. So at that time, I really pushed myself to be an expert in innovation in the music, and especially in the intersection of music and technology around many topics. And basically, that's the main reason I started to get invitations to different places and to meet other people.
Because when I looked on your LinkedIn and you describe the panels you've hosted at different conferences, it's pretty much every single conference I know. So I guess you must be traveling a lot and visiting these places.
Quite a lot, of course, and it's part of my daily job as well. Work in an export office, that's something you have to do.
So you say one of the ways you did it is that you framed yourself as an expert, which you are. But are there any other like tricks you use? Like, is there a way to approach people in the music industry that's more effective than others? Like, what's your, let's call it, technique?
Yeah, there's a lot of techniques, of course, and I think I've been very successful with a couple of simple things. Mainly, not too much concentrating on my own product or business. It's more about being curious and listening to people, what they are actually doing, and of course, eventually, when you are developing meaningful relationships in the business, you need to take care of them, even when nothing concrete is happening. I've been very lucky because I've got to know a lot of very, very influential human connectors who have helped me a lot to develop my networks. And currently, I think I'm also giving it back, doing the same thing for many people entering the business. So basically, always when you have a chance to offer help or opportunities for other people, I always try to do that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to techniques, I think there's also some pre-work that you kind of need to do. So identifying key connectors in your expertise area, and of course, going to talk to them whenever there's a chance. To make that happen, of course, face-to-face is still the king. Even though we have all the social networks and Zooms, they are something where you can start, but eventually to make something meaningful, it's always good to see people in person. And when it comes to conferences, of course, it's good to try to also to identify the best networking events in your domain, and also get to know the people who are organizing events and conferences, people who are programming panels and content, because sometimes they are the ones who know the most of the people.
That makes sense.
And eventually, when you get invited to a conference or an event as a speaker, your chances to develop your networks will grow instantly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, one of the things that you mentioned a bit about being open to talk with people is my first experience with you was that we were in Bulam, and I think I met you to some after conference gathering, and I remember we just started talking, and I didn't know who you were, and then you accommodated me in that talk, and it was only much later, maybe a couple of days after, I realized your persistent in the music industry and stuff. So what I took from that is a person who's very central in the music industry, as I would call you, took the opportunity to also talk to me and give me the time of day to explain what I do without putting your own agenda forth. And for me, that sort of inspired me a lot, because again, I think you've also, as you said, paying it forward, you've given me some opportunities that I've been very happy for. But I do experience a lot of the times in the music industry that a lot of people are what I would call almost unapproachable when it comes in, it's called posture. And you definitely don't have that. And what I love about your approach, at least as I perceive it, is that you are welcoming new connections. And I think that's also what helps propulse you forward in your career. Have you experienced this, let's call it reservedness of many other music industry professionals?
Well, of course. There are some people like that, but I still think that quite a lot of people in this business are still quite open for discussion, especially if they are traveling for events or something like that, because they need to do that anyway if they are there. But I really believe that I think understanding the art of chit chat is super important, because usually if you start to discuss, I don't know, about sports, food, your favorite TV shows, they might open up a lot more opportunities than a boring discussion about the streaming black box or major label marketers.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you were to approach entrepreneurs or people dabbling in this space that really want to create some opportunities for themselves and they need network, how, first of all, could you define how important it is to have a network? And second of all, could you give some practical steps to where they would get that? Conferences, for example. But first, how important do you think it is to have a network in the music industry?
When I think about my current job, networks is the most important thing that I have, and it's basically all that an organization like us can offer to our clients in many ways. So it plays a crucial role. And if you are a young entrepreneur starting a company, you will need networks to get some business done, because it's very, very hard just from the scratch to start to connect with people and talk about your new ideas or products or whatever.
And then to the second question, because that was a really good answer, like practically how would you do that? We've talked about conferences, but we mentioned that as again, but if you would, from a new entrepreneur's perspective, how would they start by getting a network?
In conferences, I believe that there's a couple of things that you can do. Of course, you need to prepare yourself. So you have to kind of look beforehand who's going to be around, who might be useful for you. But then again, the most important thing is to go and talk to people, which is often quite hard. And especially in Finland, we are very known as being the silent guys. And if there's a conference panel happening in Finland, normally when there's a Q&A, nobody will talk anything. And after the discussion, no one will go to say anything to the speakers. And that's exactly what you should not do. But in the music business, of course, quite often, there's a lot of things that happen late night in different networking events. So they are the places where it's much more easier and convenient to connect with different people. So for anybody, I would just say that you have to be awake and try to find out what's happening outside the official agenda, because that's where the magic often happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. And really the preparedness, what I also tend to do is if I'm speaking at a conference or if I'm participating in certain talks, I actually go and add all the speakers to my LinkedIn. So afterwards, if there's some sort of connection, a talk, I can follow up and say that was me. And so being really proactive with like, who do you want to talk to and who do you have an interest of having a connection with? That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned physical meetings are king. So now during the pandemic, a lot of things have happened online and Zoom and all these kind of, right now we're recording over Zoom. Has that changed how the networking works in the music industry, or is it unchanged?
It has changed a bit for sure. And it's a good thing that nowadays it's very easy to schedule calls with basically anybody in the world. And LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, at least for the people who uses it, and quite a lot in this industry do use it. So it's really efficient, but of course, in many cases, that's something where you can start things. But then again, hopefully at some point, you can make stronger connections with those people somewhere else.
Yeah. But it's still, even though I'm hearing it's changing and it opens up a lot of opportunities, I still hear you saying that these physical meetings and maybe perhaps that beer at the bar is really, really important.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, makes sense, especially for Scandinavians. That resonates with my heart. Yeah. That's great. Could you share some experiences, maybe in Music Finland, where you've really been able to use your network to provide opportunities for others? I want to put some examples behind all of this.
Yeah, sure. I think from my perspective, there's a lot of industry events in different countries where I've been attending for several years already before I started to work for Music Finland. And in many ways, I've been more present than the Finnish music export in many places before I started to work there. And of course, because of that, I've had a chance to help a lot to develop connections in many new markets. And that's probably one of the most useful things that has come out of my networks that I was developing already before that.
Yeah, Yeah, and also, my encounters with Music Finland, Mantic Music Group which is a company I have before Capella. We have a small office in Finland, and every single time we needed help from any export office, Music Finland were the first people we called, because you guys have such an intentional and networking approach, and like, oh, we connect you with these guys, we give you these connections in order to grow the opportunities within Finland. One of the things that I don't know if we've actually announced this publicly, but we have started a department of Capella in Helsinki, because we believe that Helsinki and Finland is an amazing music country with way too limited opportunities for music export. How do you see that developing over the next couple of years?
I'm actually feeling quite positive. Still, the amount of music companies in Finland targeting for international market, it's relatively small, and most of the businesses are very small. But when it comes to the quality of the content and the talent, I think we are really strong. And it's not just Finland; it's the Nordics in general. And I think the whole Nordic brand is quite powerful nowadays. So wherever you go, often people are like, "Wow, you're from the Nordics. You're so cool." And it's kind of a funny thing, because in many cases, many people don't care if you're from Finland or Norway or Denmark or Sweden. It's just they are Nordic people. They're cool. So it's easy to approach people.
Yeah, and do you think that gives an advantage on the international stage that you're from the Nordics?
It does, but at the same time, I haven't seen so many Finnish music professionals as visible in the international arenas, and I think in Finland we like to be silent and make the business speak itself. But of course, there's a lot of things you could do better as well.
Yeah, no, and that's what I both love about Finns and don't understand about Finns, is the quiet nature of it all. Like it's very minimalistic when it comes to communicating, but that's really cool. But do you think that networking is the same globally within music? Because right now you're talking about, physical meeting, networking, sort of openness. Is that the same thing we will encounter on a global stage within music?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So it's a universal thing. That's great. And I think that also really speaks into the importance of mastering this, because it's not just for our small local market, but it's a global thing. So if you want to do anything locally or globally, those networks and that approach to the music industry just needs to be followed, which is know people, bond with people, and exchange, let's call it, experiences.
Yep, that's right.
Wow. Okay. When looking through your CV, there's a lot of really interesting things. So you've been involved in initiatives like the Next Stage Challenge and Hemi Incubator. So that's a focus with training the music industry founders and entrepreneurs and industry professionals, as far as I understand it. What is your lookout on that generation of founders and music industry professionals? Is something happening there? Do you believe something has been lacking? What's your general feel for this whole space?
I believe there's a lot of things happening, and of course, you mentioned Hemi and Next Stage Challenge. They are like European programs, so companies and entrepreneurs from many different countries. It's just not about Finland, but I believe it's very essential to create programs like these, because they can make a huge impact in network building, and also the cross-sector aspect is very important in this program. So often it's not just about music business or not just about music startup, but to match these together. And this is actually something we've been doing also by Music Finland with our Fast Track Music Business Accelerator program that has now run for 3 years. And something that we are currently working on with Music Tech Europe Association that is going to be founded hopefully during the next month. So it's a collaboration between 9 different European organizations from 9 different European countries, really trying to develop bridges between the traditional music industry and music startups, and to develop new opportunities for collaboration, experimentation, funding, knowledge.
Yeah, because that's also what a lot of what I experienced when it comes to cross-industry collaboration. Like one of the things I focus a lot on is, of course, investors, which to some degree is cross-industry collaboration. Well, it's that landscape. Have we been underperforming as an industry, like working with other industries, or is it just me? Because the way I see me and my generation is just really not exposed to a lot of cross-industry collaboration. I might misunderstand, but has that been a thing, and is that developing?
I believe it's going to develop to a better direction. Of course, music is basically everywhere, so there's always been cross-industry collaboration because music has a big role in audiovisual content or gaming, and probably in the future more and more in new content format types, XR, VR, metaverse, whatever. So there's been a lot of stuff happening always, but I think the problem has always been how to make money out of that, and that's something many are still struggling with. But there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and I really believe that there's going to be more and more useful tools to make revenues from music also in other content types, let's say.
Yeah, makes sense. We're sort of almost rounding up the podcast, and I've been really happy that you've been here. But one of the things that I'm really interested in is that you've seen sort of the industry from a very like big helicopter perspective and seen a lot of different areas. If you were to give an advice to a entrepreneur coming into the music industry to make a mark, what would that be?
Basically, something that I already mentioned about the curiosity, but I think in general, you have to be nice to other people, because that's how things happen. People often like to do business, invite nice people to different places. So with that, you can already do a lot of things if you have good ideas. And I think the stuff that we were just talking about, cross-sector collaboration, and how music can actually make new revenues from different sources, then nowadays that's a huge thing. And I think during the next couple of years, we're going to see more and more things coming out of how music can basically unleash the potential from UGC platforms or virtual worlds, Web3. So there's a lot of tools being developed for that. I was actually super proud last month at California Music Innovation Summit, where I had a chance to host a session where YLE, the national broadcasting company of Finland, presented, to my knowledge, the first use case for a tool for tracking music usage in Roblox. And at that time, I was really, really proud there to be a guy from Finland. And that's actually something that could be scaled to all of the, 40 or 50 million Roblox worlds. And this was something that was done with the help of Telstra, and also with technology provided by a Dutch tech company, Copyright Delta. But there's a lot of cool stuff happening in that space.
Yeah. No, yeah, Dan and whatever they're doing, that's just amazing. Thank you. I really like the approach of the advice saying being nice, because I think that's sort of an overviewed aspect of being an entrepreneur that has this, I want to do this and I want to build this, and sharp elbows and everything, and then they forget that if you want to build build robust relationships, you got to be nice. You got to resonate with people. You got to have real intentions of being honest with the other person and listening to them. So I think that's a great advice to end the podcast with. But Turo, what's your future? What are you focusing on right now? What kind of initiatives are you involved in?
Music Tech Europe, something that I already mentioned, is something that's going to get properly started this fall. This is something I'm very excited about. We are working on this together with Nordic Music Tech from Stockholm, Music Tech Norway Association, Music Tech Germany, Music Tech France, Barcelona Music Tech Hub, California from Belgium, Music Innovation Hub from Italy, Meso Events from Greece. So that's something really cool. And of course, when the fall is coming, normally this is the time when you start to think about next year. And of course, I hope there's going to be a lot of cool stuff happening also from Music Finland's side. And I'm also doing some work consulting with a few tech companies and doing some work for EU and the Finnish government at the same time. So
yeah, sounds like a busy life, but really interesting. Thank you, Turo. That's amazing. I'm so happy that we had this talk about network. I believe it's so essential, and it was really great to get your insight and your perspectives on how to do it. And hopefully that's going to inspire the podcast listeners to go out and network themselves and take the first steps in doing this, because you probably can't build anything lasting or great without it. Thank you, Turo. And I'll probably see you in a couple of weeks or something like that.
Yep.
Thank you. Bye.